All right, so I think what we'll do is we'll jump right in. For those that are new to our Friday edition of Office Hours, this is our open Q&A session. So our goal here is to basically be a second set of eyes for issues you might be having at work. If you're stuck on a trailhead badge, whatever it is. So if you do have a question or something that you want to walk through or talk through, all that we ask is that you use the raise hand icon in your little buttons at the bottom there in the Zoom. Raise your hand, and then we'll just kind of go in order and answer any questions that anybody has. There is one item that I was going to walk through today, just to give awareness if folks might not be aware of this piece of functionality. But before I do that, let me just ask, are there any questions or anything that anybody would like to walk through before I jump into a tangent on my own here?
I think Ed had his hand up before. I don't know if you, there we go.
Yeah, we got it.
Hello, Ed Pinckney. Sorry about that. Had some tech problems, but this is my first time as well. Thank you all for hosting it. I'm Salesforce admin certified and business analyst certified. I think that's kind of where I want to eventually end up. I just had some questions on the project management process. I didn't know if this was the exact time I could raise that. Um, or,
Uh,
or go
you
ahead.
can absolutely raise the question. Worst case scenario, we just say we have no idea, and then we'll move on. But yeah, what do you got?
No, so as I do my own research, I kind of understand that so when I go to the stakeholder, I'm beginning with like the stakeholder analysis. From that, I am essentially creating like a business process map that identifies like the current state, and then the future state, and then the gap analysis. I understand how to actually technically do all those. Practice in Elements Cloud. I understand that once I kind of break down my future state map, that is how I develop those user stories. And I understand the invest method. I understand how to actually write the user story. My question is when I go back to the actual stakeholder and they are signing off on, I guess, the scope statement, are they approving essentially the user stories, or am I transforming the user stories into something else for the scope statement that they sign off on? Like that was so I understand like you have the project charter, the scope, and then they have to sign off to say like, yep, I approve you doing this. So that's the part that I was just a little unsure of. Are they just signing off on user stories, or am I translating user stories to something else that they sign off on? Sorry. Does that make any sense?
Makes sense, but I'm going to defer to somebody else on this call that might be might have a little bit more of a refined service process than I have within my organization. Anybody have any thoughts on Ed's question?
I will jump in and say that my experience, it depends. You've got to find out what your organization does. A lot of companies will proceed based on the user stories.
Mm-hmm.
Other companies want it documented in verbiage um, that specifies with test cases associated with it and the whole nine yards. But um, yeah, like I said, it depends. My experience.
Okay. So I guess in your experience, like the test cases that you're referring to, those are essentially like my user acceptance criteria, right? And then that goes with the user story. So I guess that was my only question. I just don't understand like when you have a stakeholder, if they're not signing off on user stories with acceptance criteria, uh, I was just looking like, is there a different way I need to Google something, or uh, I understand it could depend by organization as well.
Depends on your project methodology.
Okay.
Some organizations do Scrum, some don't. Some do waterfall. So you have to figure that part out because that what you're talking about is actually different than user stories and acceptance criteria. What you're talking about is more project management stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah, I feel like it might.
absolutely.
Good. Sorry.
I'm sorry. So go ahead.
Now, I was going to say, I think it might also depend a little bit on the client themselves, and maybe their experience level, maybe their understanding of the platform and things like that too. So, if they're coming to the table and they don't have a lot of technical experience, they're purely business users, the user stories might be very relatable to them, and you might be able to walk through and
Mm-hmm.
explain, okay, if you do this, then you're expecting this to happen, and that can very easily turn into something that they can test and verify as you're delivering things. Whereas if it's a more technical, like maybe a business technology type client, They might care about the user stories, but then they also might actually care about the implementation and more the actual technical details, and they might want to go into that in a little bit more detail. So I hate to say it, but I might have to go back to the previous statement that it really depends, and maybe there's not one
I've
maybe
heard
there's
that.
not one answer to the question, you know.
No, I've heard it depends a lot. So thank you all, and those are good points for me to Google. Thank you. That
Yeah.
helps.
All right. Well, cool. Anybody else have any questions before we jump into one very quick thing that I wanted to share with the team here? All
I had
right.
a
Oh, go ahead, Philip. Yep, you're on.
I had a question about text messaging, and what it is. I've set it up for my company, and I've noticed that on my messaging user, whenever I switch the status opt in, opt out, the system automatically sends the generic text message saying you're opted in or you're opted out. And I guess my question is there a way to stop that?
That's a great question. I honestly don't have much experience with any kind of SMS messaging through Salesforce. Anybody have any thoughts on that, or have any experience doing text messaging within the platform?
I, hey, Bill, this is Dominic. I just joined and I just heard the question. What's the challenge? I've done it a couple times with couple different. There's a couple apps that'll do it. What's the challenge he's trying to accomplish with
Yeah, the
SMS testing,
the not
texting?
necessarily the challenge. It's just that when you opt in or opt out somebody, it sends them a default email or not an email, a default text that says, "Hey, you've been opted in." And his question is there a way to turn that off? That kind of default opt-in message.
Why would you want to do that?
Um, so we are an insurance company, and when our policy cancels, we don't want any further SMS communication with the client or with the customer unless they're reaching to us. And so when their policy opts out or cancels, I'm changing the messaging user to opt out so we don't automatic or accidentally message them. And so I just was wondering if there's a way that when I do that, it doesn't send that automatic message.
Well, the reason it sends that automatic message is because you're confirming the opt out as a matter of compliance. So that's why I want to know why would you not want to have that compliance confirmation message so that they can't come back and say if they opt in again and they forgot that they opted in for some other reason, right? Then
Right.
they say, I told you to opt me out and you didn't. You have that message in your history that you did opt them out, and then you have another break in time where they did opt in. So I think it's a matter of compliance, and that may be going around the default settings for that. And um, different systems may allow you different, like depending on what app you're using, may allow it the ability to control that easier or not easier. But I think having it happen is probably not a bad idea. Have that confirmation message, and anybody thinks it's a bad idea, you might want to look at the fines that company might have to pay for not doing it before they say that.
Right. No, I mean that makes a lot of sense. And then it's something we're able to live with, and we're using the Salesforce native. We're not using a extended app.
But are you connected natively to like Twilio or something? Who's sending the SMSs?
Through Salesforce. We're using the messaging Salesforce messaging.
Yeah, so I'm gonna share my screen here
Okay.
just to show you the messaging settings. And I wonder, all right, let me make sure I'm not a customer alert. Let's see, new channel. All right, let me share my screen so you guys can see. So what I did, I just went to setup here,
Yeah.
and I went to message settings, and let me just see if I can turn all this on. Test, whatever. I just want to get to the part where we can actually see the opt-in, opt-out stuff. So I wonder, start conversation, end conversation, opt-out keywords. Opt-out confirmation. Is this the thing that you're looking at here, where you basically have like this message here for opt-out confirmation?
Correct.
Can you hit the
Um,
little
I
help key?
wonder,
I mean, the help text?
can you just remove that text there? I guess not, because it's required. So it's going to send it to them. Um,
Go to the
yeah,
messaging
what
settings
customer?
page.
Yeah. So I don't. It doesn't look like there's a way to like turn this off.
Well, it even said
It
in
says
there,
in the
it
help
confirmed
text.
what Dominic said,
Yeah.
that it's
Yeah.
European and American privacy regulations. So basically, if you got a customer in California
Um,
or Europe,
Yeah, or Europe.
you're going to get
You're
hammered.
screwed. You got to do it.
It doesn't necessarily apply to the rest of the country yet, but it will.
It will.
huh. You would think that opt-in would be something they would require, but opt-out they would be,
You're
Right, because
supposed to send an opt-in confirmation and with the instructions to opt out with those keywords that you use to opt out.
yeah.
You can set any kind of keyword, but that's what you're supposed to do. And it only matters when the wrong person doesn't get it the way that the law says, because they're going to fight it.
right. I can
When the
Um,
see
wrong
the
lawyer,
bot process of, I just opted out and you sent me a message. Obviously, I'm still in your system. How'd you send me the message? That
I had
kind
the
of
same.
lawyering too.
That's my same annoyance too. By the way, you and I think a lot in that regard. I like, why are you? I said no, but it is their cover your. It's their CYA cover your
Right.
admin's ass.
so Philip, I think
UAA.
let me summarize this answer for you. All right. So I think the answer is that it's required by law to send that opt-out message. Now, as a side note, I kind of wonder. I mean, it's got to be based off like a phone number that's in the system for that user, right? And you kind of wonder, like, if something got canceled as part of your logic, if you just remove their phone number from that primary phone number field and moved it to like the text field somewhere else where it was just stored there, so you had it if you needed it. But if they didn't have a phone number listed on their record, could it send them that opt-out message? I don't know. Um, Probably against the law, but I don't know. Yeah, maybe that's something you could do, like as part of your flow, just in turning them off, you just remove their phone number from that field so that it can't send them a message to that address.
Do it in a
And
before save, but I don't recommend it.
yeah, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't
Well, yeah,
recommend it either. But yeah,
I think you could do that, but what controls the message being able to send is that messaging user.
mm,
And so you would have to get rid of the messaging user. And if you
okay,
did that, you you lose the history of all previous messaging sessions.
yeah,
So
okay. That's probably not an option. Yeah, I just don't have a lot of experience with messaging, but I think the short answer is you probably shouldn't turn that off, even if you can figure out how to turn that off, just from
But
a legal perspective.
you can
oh
show
yeah.
that to the stakeholder who's asking for it to be turned off, though. Just show them right there in the pop-up. That's what I do.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. And I mean, and then it's kind of like, well, I know how we can do that. Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah. All right, cool. Now, I learned something new today. I have never turned on any kind of messaging or SMS with Salesforce. I feel like between my emails, the Salesforce mobile app, and all the other things, Slack and everything else, I think I have too many messages as it is. I don't want to add another channel to let Salesforce reach out to me. All right, cool. Any other questions on that messaging or SMS in general with Salesforce? Might be a place in the platform I could explore a little bit, just because I've never looked at it. Ed, yeah, you got a hand up?
Yeah, it's just one of the same thought. I've never done SMS messaging in Salesforce either, but I saw when you brought up the setup menu, it looked like that was in the workflow. And isn't workflow being retired? Would you need to move that over to a flow, or is
Uh,
that functionality going to continue?
no, let me show you what screen I was on here. So I searched for message without the E because it's actually messaging settings, and it's under the feature settings under service. I think just
Oh,
below that it was highlighted. Yeah, you saw outbound messages under process automation and workflow actions. But yeah, this is under a separate thing under feature settings.
thank you. I'll look that up later. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Sandy, what do you got? I always feel like
So,
I should stretch a little bit before Sandy's questions. Yeah. All right.
all right, get ready. So, I am
in the process of converting several process builders over to Flow, also then trying to clean up and optimize everything else. And it's essentially related to cases. And this particular org has 30 record types for cases.
Wow.
Fortunately, that's the amount isn't necessarily the issue, but right now, while we're kind of doing some of this testing, one of the weird things that's happening, so with the process builder, they had a decision node where basically if someone was creating a case that was not either a claim or a commercial claim, but they selected that claim was the type of case it should be, it would automatically update the record type to claim, just the regular claim. For some reason, if I put in commercial claim and do that, it is converting it over, and I can't figure out what would be wrong with my decision node on why it would be grabbing one where I said it shouldn't grab it.
Is there any chance that this is a decision node that you'd be able to share on your screen, or is it got secret squirrel stuff that we can't share publicly?
Let me look at it real quick.
Because I feel like this is one of those where it's like, if you see it, there might be some like obvious thing like, oh, look at that, like, you know.
Yeah, I don't think there's really anything specific on there that looks like you wouldn't have heard of as an insurance term. So
Okay, so we're looking at this thing now. We're looking at decision block, and just to for everybody's awareness, if you're not aware, basically the outcome order that we have on the left is going to follow them down in order. So the first one that it finds that's true, that's the one that it's going to go with. So we're looking at claim, and this is saying that if type 2 equals,
which is, it's a pick list.
Okay, so if that pick list is equal to claims, and it's either a claim or a commercial claim, then it's going to go through and do its thing.
No, if it's not. If it is not a
if
claim.
it's not a claim.
It's
well,
the second and third, the logic of that or basically would include all record types.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Saying
You got
if
that
it's
or,
not
but
claim,
not.
or it's not commercial claim, that would include. So like commercial claim is not claim, and claim is not commercial claim.
That's what I was afraid it was doing. So
I think it might do what you want if you change or to and. So if it's 2 and 3, because you got the two designs.
Or specifically, you have to filter out the ones that are already set, or what other conditions that would cause that setting to be claim or commercial claim. So I would, yeah. So it's it is, you got a little recursive loop right built into the one formula with the or, but you got to be more deep. You got to have a much more robust algorithm.
So why would
you got to, yeah.
What
are you really testing for?
Well, I think, okay, so I think the simplest answer, before we answer your question there, the simplest answer I think is you just got to get rid of the parentheses and just change that or to an end. And I think that would accomplish what you're trying to do. So it's the type 2 is equal to claim. It's not, the record type is not claim, and the record type is not commercial claim. I think that's the logic you're looking at. Why process builder was working and this wasn't, I think if we can, I would love to look at process builder just to see how that was in there, and then we can maybe answer that question.
Just flip that pick list so you don't have to use custom logic anymore too.
Do what?
My advice. Just
what was that?
Change the pick list back to and then you don't have to use the custom logic and write out the ands.
Right.
Just might make it easier.
Nope, you're right.
You don't have to.
No, you're right. I probably would have if I weren't like trying to think about other stuff at the same time, because that kind of thing always bugs me and I usually do it, but let me look at the process builder before I share that.
Yep, no, that's perfectly fine. While you're doing that, let me just make one point too. I think it's crazy to think that the complex logic and things you can build within Flow, and in your brain you can kind of keep all that information there and you know exactly what's happening. But you get to that one little decision and you get a couple of knots, like there's not equal twos and ands and ors, and it can really mess up your head. So sometimes what I like to do is, depending on the complexity and the number of different variables and stuff, just coming up with a few examples and literally like writing out that formula and actually putting like a Y and an N and actually like doing it on paper to follow through the path to see what's going to happen. That kind of helps. The other thing too is the debug functionality in Flow. Just find a record that's got the very specific condition that you're trying to test, debug with that record and just see the path that it follows. And that can kind of get you close to what you might need to sit there with a piece of paper and kind of, document out to try to figure out where the issue is. But
so process builder was and on all three conditions. So that was a neat.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, look, one that took less than 20 minutes.
There you go. So
there you go. Hey, Bill, I was just talking to some friends this weekend. They were watching the television show Billions. And one of the things they used to say in Billions, they would go, "Are you certain?" And they would go, "I am not uncertain." Right? It's just a languaging thing. They were trying to like protect themselves legally, but you got to be careful when you do ands and ors and ifs and not. You can get into that double language and it does mess up. So you got to kind of walk it through. What are you looking for? What are you not looking for? And I think that's right.
Yeah.
And then copying, pasting, Sandy, the way.
Copy and paste does not work from Process Builder to.
And it maybe. I know.
Sandy, let me ask you: when you did that migration from Process Builder to Flow, did you do it manually or did you use the migration functionality?
Well, I did not use the migration functionality because that particular Process Builder for that particular condition had like 20 plus nodes in it, and they were so random and they had never been cleaned up. So there's a lot of stuff that was outdated.
So the cleanup would have taken longer than just building the thing from scratch the right way.
Right. Well, I still had to do that anyway because of the fact that I had to try to figure out what exactly the intention was. Like there was even like a decision node where they must have deleted the pick list value because it said if it equals, and then there was nothing in there. So, well, that's not going to be something. Plus, they also had a bunch of assignment rules in there. So what I was able to do was kind of pick apart everything they had in that process builder that could have been done as a before save so that the conditions it needed in order to set the assignments could actually be moved to the actual case assignment rules. And that way everything could live together. So that was kind of one of the things I did. So it wasn't just about converting, it was also about optimizing and cleaning up some of the stuff that they have.
I feel like every week where you give us a little bit more of an insight into this cleanup work that you're doing with all these flows and process builders, every week I just feel a little bit more like, it's not that I feel bad for you. I'm just like, God, I'm glad I'm not going through that because that sounds like a nightmare, some of these things.
I guess part of the issue with this particular client is that they became their own company when they migrated away from a different company that had, I don't think they had Salesforce, but I think they had like a different CRM. So they were just initially mimicking everything that they had from there when they were building their version. And then, of course, things ended up not being needed later and they never cleaned it up. And then a lot of times they'll just build stuff on top of other stuff rather than going back and checking to see if it can either be combined or if there's a better way to do it or clean it up. And so then you got all this stuff running at the same time that doesn't really need to. So that's kind of what a lot of this is too.
Yeah. Well, I've gotten to the point in my career where these things give me enough headaches that when we have customers that have these requirements, I usually try to find a smarter, more organized person that could take on that work, so I don't have to. Speaking of that,
I have color-coded Google Sheets.
Well, I was going to say, speaking of that, I saw Stephen put a comment into the chat here. Stephen, do you want to elaborate on that at all, as far as the nodes and process builder versus flows?
Yeah, I was just going to say, Sandy, like I've done this for quite a few clients, migrating across, and then like sometimes when you do these process builders with like 20 different nodes, I'll still use the migrate to flow tool, but you can select just to bring like 1, 2, or 3 of the nodes across, and then so like typically, it'll like spit out the flow. And I have like really bad naming conventions, but sometimes it's still like a time save for me because I'll see like, actually decisions like 1, 17, and 22 are all kind of related. So I want to group those 3 across. And then I just put in there.
Well, in this particular instance, I actually did reduce it from the 20 plus nodes to 2. So
yeah, very cool.
Wow.
Part of it was because I was able to just delete things that weren't relevant or outdated or like the assignment rule stuff. I was able to move that. And what was funny was even with that, I ended up only needing to move 3 of them over, and I deleted the rest of them because, again, they were either redundant or irrelevant, or the record type wasn't really being used anymore or something like that. So
cool.
Yeah.
One final point then, Sean, I'm going to go to you. Whenever we talk about these ands and ors, it always reminds me that like that programmer joke where like my wife will say like go to the store, buy a loaf of bread, and if they have gallon jugs of 2% milk, buy two. So you bring home 2 loaves of bread. And you're like, well, why'd you buy 2 loaves of bread? Because they had a gallon-sized jug of 2%. And he said buy two. So anyway, uh, cool. Sean, what do you got there?
I'm having a flow issue with a screen flow.
Yeah.
Um, the screen flow is really just the error message to it. But I can show what I have.
Yeah, please do.
Sorry if I look all scrubbly. I got hit by a car on the 12th.
Oh my God. Sorry. I'm both sorry to hear that and happy that you're joining us on a Friday call to talk about Salesforce. So
Yeah, so I'm doing some work. Yeah, I got banged up. I got a broken knee or hip, fibula.
mm, mm, mm.
I don't know. Yeah, it's crazy. I'm just laying down in bed doing some Salesforce.
That's the way to do it. It's the joys of the platform. Hashtag in the cloud,
See how to share. Okay, here we go.
We're not seeing your screen if you are sharing.
Yes. This is like required. Um,
Okay, we're seeing the Zoom. There you go. Now I can see your flow.
yeah, I think I had too much tabs open. Trying to move this dash um bar.
Yeah, let me also take this opportunity to say that while originally I thought this kind of slide out panel thing on the right side was cool, I'm finding that it's more trouble than it's worth in flow, especially when you're
Um,
working on smaller monitors. But anyway, go ahead. Yeah, what do you got?
Agreed.
so I have this I used the Git account and I just made a
Yep.
record ID. This might be an older way to do it. I don't know if there's a newer way recently. It's
Yes,
just
I have. After 4 weeks or 4 separate occasions of Stephen telling me that I should just pass in the record instead of the record ID, that's the way that I go now. But this will work well. This should work. Shouldn't throw an error or anything like that. So we'll just assume we're going to keep that one for now. Yep. So we get all accounts where the ID is equal to that record ID. We're only grabbing the
yes,
first one because there could only be one account with that ID. All right, I'm
yes.
tracking.
And then I do the create contact. And then I
Let's contact where account ID
if
is
I did
equal
it
to
right,
the.
just to make the relationship, I use the account ID and record ID.
That
And then
should
here
work. Yep.
and then here I have a formula which I can
hmm
pull out. This is just to make a name.
Yeah.
I noticed like in the formulas for some reason you can't use a double and. You have to use one and in this.
Well, yeah, I mean, in most sense or most contexts, like the double and is more like a Boolean type
Logical.
operator. Yeah, logical
Yeah, that
thing.
makes that.
Whereas concatenation is the single. But I
Oh,
always
okay.
just because it's different in so many different places, like Excel, Flow, work formulas. I always hit that drop down for the select an operator just to verify. So if you hit
Yeah.
that drop down on the far right there, all right, so it looks good. Actually, just to be fair, hit that drop down for select an operator on the far right side.
Oh, okay.
And if you just throw in concatenate, what does it throw in there? Just for fun. Okay, yeah. So it
Yeah,
is the
yeah,
single. Okay, yeah. All right, so good to go. So yeah, it looks like director of, and then it's got the
yeah.
get account record dot name. Okay. Yep.
That's all
Tracking.
that's doing, just to concatenate the name.
Yep.
And then that's going into the last name on the contact.
Yep.
Um, but
Oh,
I have this update contact. and then I have the account ID equals to the record ID if I did that right.
Well, hold on one second. So this step here, I always read these from top to bottom, right? So if we're basically going to update all contact records where the account ID is equal to the current account that we're looking at. And for all those contacts that we find, we're going to set, and if you scroll down here, let's just see, we're going to set the primary counselor equal to the contact that we just created.
This one I put in here just to put in here. I needed something to say it. Really, they want the primary account, but I can't access the primary.
Well,
I
let
mean,
me ask you a
primary
question.
contact.
What is it that you're trying to do with this step exactly?
They want the primary contact be updated with this. Um,
Okay, so the primary contact on the account record. You want to set the primary contact of the account to the contact that you just created.
I think that's what maybe I read it as primary contact on contact.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that what you want to do here is the object is probably supposed to be account. You want to update the account, and you want to set the primary contact of the account that you're on, or I'm sorry, set the primary contact of the account that you're on to the contact that you just created. So instead of the object at the top, instead of it being contact, I'm thinking that you really want that to be account.
Yeah. Just
And
gonna
you probably won't want to do it with an update block. You already have the account queried.
just
You already got that in that original step. So I'm wondering if you
here's
could just put an assignment block in there to set the value, and then you can update it later when you're after the value's set.
okay. Here's the update. Maybe I read it wrong. Update the primary contact field with the new
Yeah.
ID contact created
Yeah. So
step.
that first part of that sentence is the key piece there. So do an update to the triggering record. In this case, the triggering record is the account.
The account. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm thinking that I wouldn't do this as an update right away, since you already queried the account in an earlier step. I would say that you replace that block with an assignment block. And in the
Yeah.
assignment block, you can say, um, yeah, good. If you want to, yeah, if you look for assignment here. Yep.
Okay.
And then give it whatever name you like there.
You're still going to need an update, Bill.
Yes, you will need an update, but after you do the assignment piece, because I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Stephen, but if we did that as an update, um, it would requery the record first, and then it would apply the updates. But if we've already queried it and we already have it, we might as well just update it, and then maybe I'm thinking about it wrong. Yeah.
I mean,
So if you just
this
do a
was like
primary,
a screen flow though, so it's not like a record triggered flow. So that like update the record that triggered the flow isn't super accurate either. But
yeah. Well, I tell you what, let's go down this path, and we should all just be aware that there's many different paths that we can take. So for the variable, if you click back into that field there, go to account from get accounts. Yep, and then type in the word primary, just without moving your mouse or cursor. You should have primary contact somewhere there. There you go. Let's grab that guy.
Is that one there? And then there's a primary contact here too. But
That
this
is a
one's
question
more.
that I was going to say. That's a question you're going to have to answer as to what is the actual field you're trying to update. One way or another, let's just pick one, and then you can always go back and update it later. But we'll get the full kind of thing
Okay.
set up for you, and then you can tweak it later.
Yeah.
But yeah, set that equal to, and then if you scroll down, you should see contact ID from create contact. There you go. Okay, and then you can go ahead and hit done here. And then
Thank you.
as the next element after that assignment, if you just hit the little plus there, yep, and then just do update record, and then you can say update my account or whatever you want to put in there. And then in this case, you're just going to select your account record at the bottom there. Now, one thing I'd say is yep, there you go. So, and that should take care of it. Now, there's what Stephen had brought up. There's a couple different ways you can update records. Like you can use an update element, and you can specify criteria, and then put the field update you want to do. You can do it this way, where you've queried the account, and now you're going to update it with an assignment block, and then update the record, like actually save the record using that update account. Again, lots of different ways you can do it. I guess the way I always think about it is that if I'm going to be making a couple different updates, like I'm going to check some stuff here, set a field, check some other stuff here, set a field, and then after all that stuff is all said and done, I'm going to fire one update to save the account after all those changes. I mean, that could be a reason to use the assignment blocks, but it's you know,
Couldn't
a lot of
I,
different ways.
couldn't I just did a specify conditions and updated it all here?
Yeah,
You know,
that's what I was saying. You can absolutely do that. You could specify
so,
conditions. You could re-query the account where you're basically getting all the accounts where the ID is equal to the record ID, and then you can set primary contact equal to the contact you just created. Um,
okay.
but if yeah,
The
so
assignment is probably more efficient, I guess.
I mean, again, based on the fact that it's a screen flow and you're doing like one thing, I think it's kind of a wash. I don't think it would be that big of a deal.
Okay. Thank you. I for some reason I was trying to do it on the contact. I was just reading it wrong.
Yeah, no worries.
Bill's way is much more scalable as well, Sean. Because like when you do start building bigger flows, like you can just have like all your different decision paths go to different assignment elements and just have
Yeah.
one single update account at the very end, which like all the paths just converge to. Whereas if you're otherwise saying, like one path, I'm going to set the primary contact as the director, but another path that'll be the primary contact is this, then you're going to need like 6 different update elements, and then they should all have their own like flow error paths, and yeah, just a lot more work in it. So,
Okay.
a good way to do it.
We've also all been there on that wrong record. I think. I think I can speak for all. I can speak for me at least. So
it's like, why am I
good
not
to see
seeing my
some other
fields here?
eyeballs.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, Sean, I hope that well, two things actually. I hope that answers your question, and I hope you feel better and you
Should I try to
recover.
debug it? Or
Yeah, go for it. Like I said, you want to confirm that primary contact field to make sure you had selected the right one. I know there was two in there that you were looking at. So once you do that, make sure you save your changes, and then yeah, you can go ahead and debug.
just going to see how it flows.
What is that ID that you had in there? 500? Is that a account ID?
I think 500 is usually case.
So if you can, Sean, if you can just go to the account that you're actually trying to test with, let's pull it up one of your other tabs here, and we'll just trust but verify.
Okay.
Let's just take a look at that account ID.
I think accounts are 001.
Right.
That's kind of where I was thinking. I thought 5 was either cases or 005 is user.
005 is user.
Yeah. All right. So whatever account you're trying to test with, yeah, there you go, 001.
This is the benefit of doing record ID as a record variable instead.
I'm already sold. I don't need to be told anymore. That's what I do. Just pass on that record. Makes it so much easier.
So go debug again, Sean.
Then
it's like
there's all
close
these
this
tabs.
tab. Yeah.
I used the record ID, didn't I?
You use the looks like a case ID. So you want to paste in that account ID, which is the 001 guy that's there. There you go. That should do. At least get us a little further.
Okay.
See you, Dom. Safe travels. All right, there you
Looks
go.
like it ran and went to a successful.
Well, yes. No, I will say that your like the error handling and all that kind of stuff, that would definitely be something you want to look at because I think yeah, it's either going to throw an error, it's going to finish successfully and go straight to that next screen. So yeah, I think it did it successfully. But if it doesn't work, you would want to have it go to a different screen potentially and tell them, hey, it didn't work.
Oh yeah,
whatever.
No,
I
did.
I did have
too to see if that primary contact, if that was the right, because there was those two primary contact fields on the account.
Yeah, it's an assignment.
Cool.
Yeah, so it looks good.
It looks like it did it.
It is a screen flow because you can actually go find the record.
Oh, that's right, because it would have actually created it, right? Yeah.
The record triggered one, yeah.
All right. Well, I hope that helps. Sean, anything,
it does. Thank
else
you.
we can help you with here?
No, this was it. I'm kind of rusty at screen flows. I'm a little bit better at record trigger flows for some reason.
Yeah. All right, cool.
I think the record trigger flow is a little bit easier. The screen flow is a little bit more challenging.
All right. Well, as always, any other questions, let us know.
Thank
I do
you.
see another hand up. Alex, what do you got?
All this flows. It just got me thinking. Just a super generic question. So we have a number of sandboxes. We're in our deployment pipeline. We'll have our dev sandbox. We'll have, let's say, like a UAT sandbox. Of course, we'll have that same version of that flow in both sandboxes.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone know of a quick way to automate comparing the flows from like a dev sandbox to a UAT sandbox? Because I'll download the metadata from both sandboxes, use just a standard compare tool. But what I found is the metadata downloads in a non-determinate order. So even though the flows are the same, my comparison will say there's differences. I don't know if you were aware of a free tool or an app exchange tool or something that makes it easy to compare flows between orgs. The same flow, of course, between two orgs.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't have an answer for you, specifically around like a free tool that would do that. If I ever had that question, like I said, I would usually download it to download the metadata and then use Meld or VS Code or something to do the comparisons. But to your point, if they're in different orders, then that gets a little bit more complicated, and you're in a cut and paste business trying to move stuff into the same order so you can compare it. Anybody have any thoughts on a better way to do that?
I mean, I compare code using GitHub, but I'm not sure that stretches across what he's talking about.
Well, so here's the
Like
issue.
it
So
works
just to
great with
put a
Apex code or something, but yeah, the visual force, that metadata downloads in random orders, even though they are the exact same flow in both sandboxes, the metadata API for some reason downloads those flows with the components in non-deterministic orders is what I've read.
Yeah. So let me put a finer point on that, right? So you say about Apex code. When you download the Apex code from different orgs, a class is a class, and those lines of code are going to be in the exact order that no matter where it is, right?
Yeah.
But if you have something that's like XML, where it's got, or think of it like an object definition, where you have different fields that get created on the object. I don't know how they formatted or what order they put it in, but if you created, fields in orders 1, 2, 3 in this environment, and then you create those exact same fields, exact same API names in order 2, 1, 3 in a different environment, when you download them, exact same fields, exact same metadata, but the files that represent them are going to look different. They're just going to be in different orders potentially. So I think that's the issue that we're working with. But yeah, I don't know of a great way around that. Like I said, anytime that I have the same issue with permission sets or profile definitions and things like that we pull down. And again, it's just one of these where, I find it over here and I got to find it down here, and then I say, okay, those are a washer. I got to move it around just to verify. But I don't know of a great tool that can do that in an automated way.
Cool.
Yeah, I wish I had a better answer for you, but I'm not aware of anything.
Yeah, I Googled the heck out of it. That's where I landed too. So
is it just the file names you're concerned about, or the contents of the files?
Oh, the content is what I'm comparing. Yeah, because I want to see if the flows are the same without having to. Because we have some pretty wacky flows. I have to put it on giant monitors to really compare them. It's really manual. But yeah, so the contents, the metadata of the files.
When you have hardware costs to debug your flows, I think that indicates that you might have gone wrong at some point. I don't know. Yeah, no, I'll definitely keep an eye out. If I think of anything else, I'll definitely let you know. But yeah, and all my time of trying to do this with our managed package with like profiles, permission sets, and other kind of XML style files, I've never come up with a great solution for that. Maybe something like Metazoa, or these other kind of source code comparison tools.
And all that. Yeah.
Yeah, because they might be smart enough to actually digest the contents of the file and then actually compare them, apples to apples. I don't know. Been a while. Steven, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was just saying there's a tool like Jetstream, which is free. So like I just brought one up, just looking at a single flow. If you want to check it out.
Thank you.
Jetstream.
So yeah, if you just like get jetstream.app. And then, so yeah, you can do like deployments and things as well. And then, so I'm just like looking at a sandbox and production. And then, so Yeah, I mean,
So
there isn't.
I think
Yeah.
the issue would be if on the left side, if you go all the way to the top here and you see like that line for location X 264, right? So line 7. If one downloaded this file, they put location X on top of location Y, but in the other one they put Y on top. When this comparison would be done, would it be smart enough to know that, hey, they're in different orders, but it's the exact same thing? I think that's the issue, is that
I see.
when it like generates the XML, it's putting it in, different orders, even though in the end it's doing the exact same thing and it's got the exact same logic and everything else.
Probably wouldn't be that clever.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I mean, this is like pulling live from the two different
I'll try
orgs.
it with my flows. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm game to try it anything because yeah, that the profiles, all that stuff that comes down in a non-deterministic order is challenging for me to compare between the sandboxes.
I would even hate to suggest this, but I imagine that there's probably tools out there that are like XML. Well, even some things like in Excel, you could probably like import the XML and then you could probably sort it by alphabetical order or something. I don't know, but that would probably be pretty ugly. Yeah. Stephen, one question for
Oh,
you. Jetstream, is that a paid tool or is that free?
It's all free. It's open
Oh,
source. Yeah.
okay. I think I saw that was jetstream.com.
.app.
Dot app. Okay. Cool. All right.
okay.
Awesome. Any other thoughts or questions on that before we move on? All right. John, I see your hand up. What do you got?
Yeah, just a question how to approach this. I have created an opportunity. We're using the opportunity to create a class. So on the class, it has the account, which is the school name, and then we have the semester, the course, and the days of the uh course. And then
Yeah.
on the activity, we add all the event as the weekly classes. Now that I've set up the class, uh, they want to also add the student to the class who attended the student into the opportunity. I was thinking, what is the best way to add it? Is it a screen flow where it has a table where you can add all the different student, or what direction should I be using to
Well,
add the student for a class?
yeah. So let me say this back to you, and then I'll give you my 2 cents, and then we can open it up for other feedback. So it sounds like what you have is an opportunity record. When that opportunity is like closed one or whatever it is, it's creating another record in a different object that represents a class. So like somebody's attending a class, it's got like the school and all that information there. Underneath the class, you're going to have actual event records, which, if the class is CSC 141 computer science, like intro to computer science, that's the class. And then the actual like Tuesday at 5:30, like every Tuesday in the semester at 5:30, those are being represented by event records. In addition to that, under the class, you need to know who the students are. They're going to be a part of that class. So before we would get to the UI part of it, I think from a database perspective, the first thing that comes to my mind is you have a class object that represents classes. You have probably a student table of some kind that represents the actual humans, people, actual students that are actually in the school. And then there's got to be some kind of junction table that says for this class, this student is attending. So it's almost like a class roster object that has two lookup fields, one to class, one to student, that would allow you to basically assign students to a class, but you can assign that same student to a different class by using that same kind of junction table. So that's what my gut tells me that you would need to create. Essentially, there's a student table, a class table. This would be the thing that says, these are the students that are in this class. Let me pause there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the class is actually a picklist. Let's say this course we're creating is Lab 101. So and then it falls on Thursday. It's also picklist. Say this is Thursday, and then the semester is a picklist where for 23, 2023, 2024. So when it saved, the unique course ID is a concatenation of the school plus the course ID plus the semester plus the day, which make
Okay.
a
And
so
that's all in a
so
course object?
yeah. No, it's all housed in the opportunity record.
Okay. So the opportunity is going to be that represent that like class or
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
core. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
So, and then under the opportunity, you have the event records that represent the
Yeah,
individual like dates.
yeah, under the activity, there's a new event. So I'm using the event at the new event where we set up like if it's a weekly class, we set for activity. Event one is this date to this Tuesday, and then the next event will be the next Tuesday
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So then I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but everything that I mentioned about that junction object would still apply. It's just that
Okay.
it's going to look up to the opportunity, which is,
Mm-hmm.
that course or that class, and then it
Mm-hmm.
would connect to the student as well. So that would allow you to assign students to the opportunity record. So it's kind of like a course assignment object with a lookup to opportunity and a lookup to student.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at opportunities, you'd be able to see a related list under that opportunity that's got all the students that are in it. And if you were to go to a specific student, you'd be able to see a related list that's got a list of all the classes that they're attending or the courses that they're attending. But I
So
think it's
basically,
still going to be an object that's
yeah.
going to be related to
Okay. So
opportunity.
I have to create a student object so that it can be linked to. Okay.
Uh,
Because we
it could be a
we
student
don't want
object. It could be the
yeah,
contact
yeah,
object with a type called
yeah.
student. It could be, yeah, anything like
Yeah,
that.
because the contact is all the school teacher and the office, but student is not considered a contact. So we have to create a student record for.
It could be, or
Okay.
like I said, it could be just a different type of contact that you can create.
So, and then on the UI side below, do I add it as a screen flow or just a generic?
I
Because you want to add individual field, right? And I don't want just to add like 5 student field, but that's not scalable, right? If there's 20, I don't want to create 20 field. I want to have one, let's say, uh, add student, and then I can enter the first student, and then add another row, another student, so that if 5, I would add 5. If it's 20, then I'll add 20. Or whatever.
So okay, so the first thing would be create the objects. I would say the second thing
Mhm.
to do would be get the UI, like the standard Salesforce UI. So when you're looking at an opportunity, you can see this assigned students related list, and you can manually do it from there by clicking like click new record, right?
I got it.
That step one object. Step two is the basic Salesforce UI. The next step that you might want to look at would be, to your point, of screen flow, where you can imagine a screen flow where it says has some kind of search criteria where you enter in like I don't know, some detail about the student, depending on how many students you have, right? Let's just say you
Mhm,
only have 50 students total, right?
mhm,
You
mhm.
could create a screen flow that uses the data table element where you could basically query all the students, display them in a table, and then you can make it such that you could check off, the 4 or 5 students you want to assign to that class. And when you click next, it would basically loop through them and create those assignment records to that
Okay.
opportunity. A lot of different ways you can do that. But
Okay.
I think step one is getting the data model set up and make sure that that's working before you would worry about the screen flow piece.
In terms of the data model, John, I just put a link to the program management module, which is like used in nonprofits for this. And then so like it's quite robust where you've got like what the main program is, what the program session is, whether someone like then like the subsessions, like which classes are going, whether someone attended those. And so like maybe, I don't know if you're in nonprofit or not, you might just be able to use that. Or if not, at least you can see how they set it up and try and replicate a lot of that.
Yeah, we have the non-profit PSP version. So
okay, well then yeah, definitely have a look at PMM program management module.
okay, thank you. And that's free, right?
Yeah, that's free. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions on that, Stephen? Thank you for that. But any other questions on that topic? So I think this is going to be 2 weeks in a row that I had this one little thing that I wanted to share that we're not going to have time for me to go through it. So I'll save it for next week then. I guess in the last 2 minutes, anybody have any last minute questions or things that they would like to talk through? All right. So then the very last thing that I'll leave you all with, I know there's a lot of folks on here that are joining week after week, always provide awesome feedback, give great suggestions, and you're more or less officially or unofficially kind of co-host of this call. But I wanted to make an official invitation that if anybody is interested in getting more active within the Military Trailblazer community, the Military Trailblazer office hours, if you're looking to volunteer, take on a more official role, shoot me a message in Slack, in our Military Trailblazer Slack. If you are not a member of our Military Trailblazer office hours Slack, I'm going to put the invitation for you to join in the chat
I've
here.
already done that.
Oh, thank you very much. There you go. So, but yeah, definitely, if you're interested in getting more involved or you want to kind of formalize or help out with posting videos or other things or coming up with ideas when we don't have questions, all kinds of stuff that we could use help with. So hit me up. But otherwise, I hope everybody has a great weekend and we'll catch up next week. So thank you all.